Hey, I know you're a talented coach. You've got expertise, passion, and you genuinely want to see your clients win. But have you ever had that sinking feeling during a session that, um, especially with a group, right, where things just fell flat? You're dropping wisdom bombs and nothing seems to be landing. The energy is down in the basement, and you're just not seeing the breakthroughs that are possible. What if I told you it's probably not your coaching that's the problem, but instead it's a missing skill? There is a hidden skill that can take you from just giving advice to actually crafting transformation. This is a skill that separates good coaches from legendary ones, the ones who create profound, lasting, and ongoing change for their clients. And the key is not just unlocking better results, but those sort of 10x results that we talk about. Well, stick around because today I'm going to pull back the curtain on the art of facilitation, and I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. My name is Josh Friberg, and I am a certified Xchange guide. And what that means is that I've studied facilitation to learn how to release wisdom, knowledge, and intelligence at speed and scale for individuals and for groups. Well, let's have some real talk. As a coach, you're often the expert in the room, right? Your clients are looking to you for guidance, and that pressure can push you into what is frequently called the expert trap. We feel this like weight that we have to have all the answers and solve every single problem. We have to be the hero in our client's story. So what we end up doing is we give advice, we draw roadmaps, and we push and we push and we push for a particular outcome. But here's the hard truth. When you're the only one with the answers, you're creating dependency in your clients, not capability. And this might solve the problem today, but you haven't built your client's muscle to solve their own problems tomorrow. And that's the massive difference between giving advice and architecting transformation. Real transformation happens when clients unearth their own solutions, when they believe in their capacity and capability to solve their own problems. They create the breakthrough and they buy into the breakthrough. It becomes part of their DNA. And the expert trap completely short circuits this entire process, right? It keeps you, the coach, right, as the star of the show, the big hero, as it were. But what if the goal isn't to be the hero? Instead, let your goal be to be the guide, right? What if your job is to create an environment where your clients become their own heroes? That's the shift from coaching to facilitation. And it really does change everything. So, what in the world is facilitation anyway? In coaching terms, facilitation is the art of making things easier for your clients. It's about guiding a process really and not dictating the content. It's the operating system for helping individuals and humans interact and solve their own problems. What you do is you serve as a neutral guide and you design and lead people through a journey, helping the individuals in the group dig in deep, right, to their own resources, their own resourcefulness, and draw out that collective wisdom they all have to reach their goal. Think of yourself as an architect, right? You don't grab the hammer, you don't grab the nails or the boards and start building a house yourself. Instead, you design the blueprint and you create a structure where your building crew, right, your clients, can do their absolute best work. They can do it safely and they can do it efficiently. So you make sure that the foundation is solid and that there's a clear process to follow. And that's really the genius, is the process lets them build something they could have never done on their own. This is why facilitation is one of those 10x skills. For one-on-one clients, it deepens the work and empowers your client in self-discovery. But in group coaching, this is actually where it gets really exponential, because a really skilled facilitator, they can juggle complex group dynamics. They make sure everyone in the room gets a voice They handle conflict, navigate conflict, and they guide the team to a solution that is genuinely the team's solution, not yours. So you're not just coaching a collection of individuals, you're transforming the group itself into an organization, an organism that has a wisdom and life of its own. And this process is called creating psychological safety. And the research, Google years ago did Project Aristotle and identified the number one predictor of team success was this simple phrase, psychological safety. Listen to this one more time. The number one predictor of team success is psychological safety. It's not actually about you like throwing your coaching skills away. It's about adding a really powerful tool to your tool belt. And what it does is it creates sustainable, repeatable, exponential results for your clients and teams. All right. So how do we actually make this shift? Well, it starts with mastering 5 core facilitation skills. And these are the practical tools that will take you from being a subject matter expert to really becoming a facilitator. The first one is architecting the space. Right now, this can be a physical space if you're meeting in person, but it can also be this sort of psychological space that we create when we meet on Zoom. Long before the session starts, you as a great facilitator are already at work. You're architecting the space, designing the entire experience, designing the questions, designing the agenda. It's really about everything. It's not just the room or the Zoom link, but it's also about setting clear objectives, creating a really clear agenda. It's about establishing what I call agreements. You might have heard these called ground rules, but creating agreements that build psychological safety for everyone and ensure every voice gets heard. So what you want to do is really set that stage for all that work ahead, letting people know that all voices are going to be included, letting people know how best to participate in the collaboration so that things don't downshift into a debate or a fight over ideas, but instead everyone has a little bit of inquiry as well as a little bit of advocacy. You're really consciously creating a space where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, share ideas that aren't all ready for prime time, and contribute without, not only without fear of judgment, but trusting actually that they're going to be appreciated. That safety is really the first layer that we need to create transformation. Skill number 2 is all about masterful listening and generative questions. As coaches, we know a lot about active listening, but facilitation asks us to go even deeper because we're going to be inviting everyone to listen well, to ask great questions, right? Come from a posture of inquiry, but then also be listening well to appreciate or cause to grow the things that they hear back. Also, as a facilitator, you want to be listening for what's not being said. You have to have a controlled nervous system so that you can be tuned in with subtle energy shifts. When you can notice themes that are bubbling up that nobody else is paying attention to. And when you use that insight, you can ask really powerful, pointed, and generative questions to draw out the wisdom, knowledge of the group. And these questions, they're not the kind of questions where you're leading them to the answer you already had in mind, but they're really open-ended questions that unlock a new way of thinking for your participants. I've heard a couple really great facilitation questions lately. One of them was this: what might be possible if we slowed down? In a world where we are constantly pushed to go faster, do more, what might be possible if we slowed down? This is a great question. What these questions do is they turn the spotlight away from you and back onto your participants so the real work happens. I've always said that great facilitation is like great officiating in sports. When it's done really, really well, most people won't even notice it. Let's talk about skill number 3, the art of unwavering neutrality, right? This is embody Switzerland. It might be the toughest skill of all, especially if you're an expert like you are. As a facilitator, you have to actually stay impartial to the content of the discussion. Your job isn't to have the winning idea. It's not to nudge the group toward your favorite outcome. It's not to be the smartest, funniest, or best person in the room. Remember, you are not the hero of this story. Your client is. Your job is to be the guardian of the process, right? So when conflict pops up, you're not going to pick a side. When you want to help the group find common ground, right? When the energy stalls out, you don't provide the answer. Guess what? You also don't provide the energy. What you do is you introduce a new pattern, a new interaction, a new way of looking at the problem so that they create the energy, right? And they find the new answer. And that neutrality actually builds a ton of trust. One of the hardest things to do when you're committed to this neutrality is when someone has a great idea is avoid the urge to plus one it. Avoid the urge to add to it. Instead, simply reflect back what they said that was amazing and appreciate it. Use the same vocabulary words they chose. Don't try and shift it or shape it at all, but instead reflect it back and let them receive the appreciation. When your clients trust that you are there for their success and not to push an agenda, it will actually allow them to go all in on the solution and really believe in the process. Skill number 4 for a great facilitator is guiding the flow. A great facilitator is like the conductor of an orchestra, right? You're in charge of the rhythm and the pace, and it means you're going to capture great ideas, make sure everyone's on the same page, and you want to summarize progress to keep the group fired up, keep them moving forward. And you have to know when to let the conversation breathe, when to speed it up, when to bring it back on track. All of these things. A simple tool, you've seen this used before, is something like a parking lot, right? This might be a dedicated flip chart in the room or a dedicated place for keeping notes in a Zoom call that says, hey, if a great idea comes up or an important topic comes up, but this isn't the time or place to work on it right this second, we're going to make sure that we capture it and say, hey, this is a fantastic point. We're going to stay focused on this goal, this conversation, but I want to make sure we come back to it and we'll put it in the parking lot. This honors the contribution of the person who took the risk to share it, even though it was sort of out of bounds, but it doesn't derail the whole discussion. You have to manage that whole group's energy and focus on getting them across the finish line of the intended objective of our meeting. Skill number 5 is one of the most difficult. Invite every voice. In any group, you've got loud talkers and quiet thinkers, right? You have extroverts and introverts. You have ideas people and people who execute on those ideas, right? And often in an expert-led discussion, the only people who get listened to are the loudest voices in the room or the people with the greatest positional authority. Your job as a facilitator is to make sure every single person has a chance to hear and be heard, has a chance to see and be seen, that everyone has a chance to contribute. This is really non-negotiable for great collaboration and buy-in because people are going to have to execute on these ideas. They will do it at a much higher level when they feel like they were part of the process of creating the ideas. Let me give you a couple little ideas that can make sure that this happens. One, you want to really flatten the room, right? If you walk into an organization that's highly hierarchical, you want to make sure you flatten the room as best as possible. Literally make sure that you're physically putting people in a position where it isn't obvious who the high status and low status folks are, who the high authority and low authorities folks are. Second, in that process, Work with the people who are high authority. Pull the CEO aside, pull the president aside, and say, hey, listen, I need you to do two things today. When we get into the discussion, I want you to wait to speak till almost the very end. I want you to just listen, listen, listen. And second, when you speak, I will invite you to do this, is to notice someone who shared an idea that had an impact on you. To say, hey, when Joe shared this idea, it really changed my perspective about this. It lets everybody know that all voices in the room are heard and have an impact on you, the highest status person in the room, right? Second, build small breakout rooms. It takes no more or less time to build breakout groups of 3 than it does to do groups of 10, right? In fact, what takes forever is when you go around the room and hear from everybody. That nonsense takes for everybody, and takes forever, and everybody's bored. When you create small groups, 2, 3, 4 people, and give people time for a conversation that breathes, everyone gets to hear and be heard. Those groups then can upvote ideas, can come on to consensus on what to share in the large room. Everybody doesn't need to have every idea heard in the large room. They just need to know they were heard somewhere in the process. This will also keep those 1 or 2 loud voices from dominating the conversation, and it gives introverts enough runway to contribute. Last thing I want to do is make sure you give intentional space for everyone to think through their responses to questions. Silent time to jot down ideas and think things out. This really intentionally makes space for everyone, and it unlocks the full intelligence that's possible in your room. Hey, if you're starting to see how this shift from a subject matter expert to an architect who facilitates change could really change your coaching practice, would you do me a favor and hit that like button? You know what this does is it helps the channel out, but it also tells me the kind of stuff you'd like to see more of. Look, mastering these skills isn't going to happen overnight. It really is a journey. So how do you get started? First, become a student of facilitation. Read books, watch other facilitators, and learn the techniques. But most importantly, you have to practice. If you're looking for a training on how to become a great facilitator, make darn sure that there is a system for practicing and receiving feedback on that practice. Listen, the research is clear. The only way to get to expertise at something is through deliberate practice, which is doing something, reflecting on the experience, receiving feedback, and then making change and doing it again. Here's a couple ways you can get started, though, in your next one-on-one coaching session. Challenge yourself to ask 3 more questions than you usually do. Maybe even go through an entire call without making a single statement, only ask questions. Or in your next group meeting, try a purposeful connection exercise of designing a question, putting people into great breakouts of 3, and then hearing from several of those voices in a large group report out. Second way to master your facilitation skills is get feedback. Find an experienced facilitator, or better yet, a community of facilitators, so that you can learn from them and receive great feedback. One place you can do this is with the Xchange approach. This is the group that certified me, and I love working with this group. Not only is our guide certification program provide practice sessions where you receive feedback, we have monthly practice sessions, not only on facilitation skills, but also presencing skills and business development for those that need that. Another thing that's really important in your growth as a facilitator is video recording yourself. If you have permission, record the next meeting that you guide, or record one of your one-on-one coaching calls and watch it back. We so infrequently actually give ourselves time to review our practice and to notice what we could do to improve, or what strengths we could double down on. Here's the truth. The clients that you work with probably don't need yet one more subject matter expert in their life telling them what to do. They need a guide to come alongside them to help them discover their own answers, discover their own solutions. The fact is, they are a subject matter expert in their own life. When we shift from being the expert with all the answers to becoming a great facilitator, we can guide them to their own breakthrough. This is one of the most powerful changes you can make for your clients and for the organizations you work with. It's how you move from creating kind of temporary fixes so they always need you in a dependent way to architecting that lasting transformational change that comes by increasing your client's capacity. It's how you unlock those 10x results, because you're not just building their success, you're building their capability, their confidence, and their independence. And this is something that will last them for the rest of their life. Hey, to help you get started on this path right now, I have guest passes to our Xchange workshop. This is a 2-hour concentrated experience where you can learn some of the key facilitation skills. We hold it once a month. If you'd like to go, send me a direct message and I will get you into our next monthly Xchange workshop where you can learn more about these types of facilitation skills. Hey, thanks so much for watching. And if you want to level up your coaching skills even more, learn more about facilitation, would you please take a second to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and then every time we come out with a new video, you'll be sure and get it. This is how you can elevate your coaching business and elevate your events.